Welcome everyone to the second day of the Women Tech Global Conference and today's talk on technical literacy for non-engineering roles. This is a topic that I am really passionate about and I spend a lot of my time talking and thinking about, so I'm really excited to share my insights and my tips with you all today. This talk is going to be perfect for you if you are interviewing for any role at a tech company that values tech knowledge. So roles like product management, project management, if you're in marketing, if you're in sales, if you're in operations, if you're in customer success, or if you are a non-technical startup founder, or if you have aspirations of being one. It's perfect for you if you work closely with engineering teams. So if you need to communicate with them in any way, collaborate them, and that is just a part of your role. If you write about technology, if you're a technical content writer and you want to understand technology and software better, this is for you. If you ever have to explain software products from a tech perspective, so for example, if you're in a client-facing role, if you're in a customer success role, and you need to be able to speak confidently about the software or help troubleshoot your product. And really just if you want to feel more confident about your tech skills because you feel that technology and being technical is going to be a big part of your career moving forward, right? Then this talk is going to be for you. So here's the agenda for today's talk. First, we're going to cover what it means to be technical. So no doubt you've heard the word used before, and you will also learn why taking a coding class is the least effective way to become more technical. I'm going to jump into introducing the 4 technical skills framework for how to think about what it means to be more technical. And we're going to end with 3 ways that you can improve your tech skills and your knowledge. And none of them involves taking a coding class. All right. So before we jump into it, here's a little bit about me. I'm just gonna, talk a little bit about me. So hi everyone, my name is Irene Yu. I am the founder and a tech mentor at Skiplevel.co, and I help non-engineering professionals and companies and teams improve their tech knowledge and their tech skills in order to build more confidence in today's tech-centric world. I'm also a full stack software engineer. I have worked at a very wide range of companies, from ad agencies, mid-sized startups, large national companies, where I was building highly scalable applications on the front end and on the back end. I want to share with you a little bit about my story. Throughout my career as a software engineer, I've worked with many non-technical product managers. For those of you who are not sure what the PM role is, it is a role that works very closely with software engineers to plan and to ship software. I started tech mentoring a product manager that I worked with at Amazon in 2019. This meant I was holding bi-weekly meetings with her, going over technical documentation and answering questions that she was afraid to ask during engineering meetings. And this was a really eye-opening experience for me. There were many things that I thought were common knowledge. And for the first time, I realized that they were not actually common knowledge. And I came to the realization that while engineers have the opportunity every day to learn technology, that's really not the case for non-engineering roles. And in fact, technical knowledge today is created for developers, and it really was not created for the non-engineering role. So in 2020, I started working full-time on Skiplevel, where my thought is to make technical skills and knowledge more accessible for everyone and not just devs. I'm really proud to say that since Skiplevel launched last year, I've helped over 200 non-engineering professionals and teams improve their tech skills and their knowledge, including working with companies like IBM and Whole Foods and professionals that work at companies like Amazon and Stripe and Facebook. So with all of my expertise working with and with all of my expertise working with product managers, my expertise as a developer, I've put together this talk today to share with you some of my insights and my tips. Before we dive in, some quick housekeeping items before we start. This is a 35-minute talk with 5 minutes of Q&A at the end. So feel free to leave at any time, but if you stay until the end, I will share with you a special one-time offer for the Skiplevel program that I would love for you to take advantage of. You can ask questions at any time in the Q&A box. And please share your thoughts with me throughout the presentation. I really want to hear your thoughts. Gabe is my team member, and he will be on hand to answer any questions. So Gabe, do you want to just quickly jump on camera, wave to everyone, just say hi? There he is. Hi, Gabe.
Hey, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gabe. If there's a question that Gabe cannot answer, I will go through them at the last 5 minutes of Q&A. And if we run out of time, you can always reach me on social media or book a coaching call with me. More than happy to talk to you guys. I love talking to people in the industry. Cool. All right. Now that we have housekeeping out of the way, let's go ahead and dive right in. So I want to start with, what does it mean to be technical? In other words, what is technical literacy in the tech industry? So here's the formal definition. Tech literacy is your ability to assess, to acquire, and to communicate information pertaining to the building and the maintenance of software. Right. So here's a myth about tech literacy. Many people think that coding and being technical is the same thing. And therefore, many of us try to become more technical by taking a coding class. In reality, knowing how to code is not the same as being technical. Okay, they are two separate skills. Saying that someone must know how to code in order to be technical is kind of like saying you have to be a basketball player in order to know what a free throw is. But you don't need to be a basketball player to understand how the game of basketball works, right? And so it's the same concept. You don't have to be a developer to understand technology and software and how it works. Right? So what's the truth? The truth is that taking a coding class is actually the least effective way to become more technical. Gabe's going to open up a poll, and just let me know if you've taken a coding class before to become more technical, and if so, in which programming language. When you take a coding class, what you're really learning is the syntax of a specific programming language, right? So you're learning things like, how do I assign a variable in Python? Or how do I write a for loop in C++, right? Taking a coding class focuses on going really deep into the ins and outs of coding in a specific language, which is really not the same thing as knowing how to build an application, because so much more goes into building software than just coding. If your goal is to become a developer, then you will have to learn how to code, right? But if your goal is to be technical, then taking a coding class is going to be the least effective way to achieve that goal. So you might be wondering, why is technical literacy important for non-engineering roles in the first place? After all, since you're not a developer, you don't have a direct role in building software. Right? So almost half of all tech company roles are actually non-technical in nature. So non-technical roles include roles like product management, project management, UX, UI, data, sales, customer success, operations, business development. And while these non-engineering roles do not build software directly, they all work on software in one way or another. So these roles either have an important role in the selling of software, buying software, planning software, designing software, right? That's UX and graphic design, maintaining of software, working with software teams, or interfacing with software customers. Yet despite this fact, 50% of the workforce in the software industry have little to no technical literacy, and most have never received any training in technical literacy. And no matter what role you're in, if you work in the software tech space, then having tech skills can only benefit you. It's never going to be a con, right? It's always going to be a pro. So take the product management role, for example. Product and project managers work very closely with dev teams to plan and to build software. Tech, having more tech skills will help you write better business requirements that help developers know what to build, and therefore there's less back and forth, right, between dev teams and the product manager. Being more technical also allows product managers to communicate better with non-engineering teams, which then helps them gain their engineering team's trust, their respect, and their influence, which is really a very big game changer for product managers. The big part of PM's role is also product timeline, right? So having an understanding of technology and software helps them be able to gauge how long and how much a feature or product will take to build, right? Along with thinking about the feasibility of a requirement and what is the scope of work for that requirement that is needed. Being more technical is also extremely beneficial for roles in sales and in any roles where you have to talk to the client, right? For example, being better able to answer customer questions about a software product, especially if the product itself is technical in nature, such as a SaaS product or like an API product, right? Having technical skills and knowledge also better enables customer success teams to troubleshoot issues without relying on a dev team. So this saves a lot of time and frustration for everyone, especially the customer. And then finally, sales and customer success teams are usually the first to become aware of complaints and customer feature requests. When you have the right technical knowledge, you're able to better communicate these customer concerns to product managers and software teams. Right? So this is why being more technical benefits non-engineering roles. So let's move on to part 2. Now that we've learned what technical literacy is and why it's important, what other skills are involved in being more technical? We typically think about being more technical as just one skill, right? In reality, it's actually a combination of 4 skills that together make up a person's ability to assess, to acquire, and to communicate technical information. So what are these 4 skills? The first one is having an awareness, a broad awareness of available technologies. The second is understanding technical trade-offs. The third is your ability to communicate using popular technical terms and lingo, which goes for both speaking and comprehending technical content. And fourth, having an understanding of the software development lifecycle, right? So this is a process of building software. So I'll talk a little bit about these a bit more in depth. The first skill is having a broad understanding, a broad awareness of what sorts of technologies are available out there. In other words, are you aware of the common tools, the services, the techniques that are used in the industry in order to design, to document, to build, to ship, and to maintain software? Do you have a fundamental understanding of technology such that you're able to understand the use cases and the problems that these technologies solve? This is going to help you in a few areas, but here's 3 specifically. First, if you have the skill, you'll have a general sense, kind of like a mental roadmap of what are the capabilities and the limitations of technology. This mental context is really important in order to ask the right questions, well-informed questions, and have a frame of reference during technical discussions. So being able to communicate and to comprehend what is being said during technical discussions, right? Once you get enough practice in this area, you can then use your mental toolbox to contribute ideas and suggestions during technical discussions on how to solve a problem or build a feature using different technologies. Yes, just because you are not a developer, you can contribute ideas and suggestions during a technical discussion. It is very much welcomed as long as you know what you're talking about, right? Here's a quick example of what I mean by having a mental toolbox of tech. So for example, slow browsing and loading speeds for web applications is actually a very common issue for teams, but there are many techniques and tools that the industry uses to solve latency, right? So slowness. So for example, different forms of things like caching, things like server-side rendering, or incremental loading. These are all techniques that the industry often uses in order to solve the issue of slow browsing speeds, aka latency. As someone who is tech savvy, you're able to understand these technologies and know what problems they solve and how to communicate about them. Versus someone who is not technical, they would not be aware of these different technologies or how to speak about them, and therefore probably have difficulty keeping up during tech talks with dev teams, right? So understanding the fundamentals of technology and the available tools that are out there to solve different problems, that is what it means to have a broad awareness of available technologies. Let's move on to skill number 2. Skill number 2 is having a mental map of what technologies are available to solve what problems. And this helps improve skill number 2, which is evaluating technical trade-offs. So are you aware of the common technical trade-offs, right? Are you able to evaluate the different strategies for building software based on these trade-offs? When we build a product, we can look at it from many different angles, including what are the business goals of this product, right? So that's biz dev. We can look at it from the perspective of our users. What features do they want? But developers, they look at software from a technical perspective, balancing technical trade-offs. And it's important to also be aware of this perspective. Here's an example. Let's take this app, for example, right? If you've never used Venmo before, it is a very popular mobile payment app that allows people to transfer funds to each other, right? So it includes features like adding and removing friends, sending payment, transferring balances to and from your bank. Let's say the dev has a list of these features. They're going to look at these features and they're going to look at the specific recs, right? And they're going to come up with different options for building. And they're going to evaluate each of these options, these different ways of building, based on the technical trade-offs, to then decide what is the best option to use, what is the best option to build. So some examples of the technical trade-offs include whether the option is secure, right? If it's maintainable, this is very important to the long-term health of software. If it is fast, right? Again, latency. If it is scalable, right? If your product grows, and hopefully it does, and having more users, we want to make sure that it's scalable. Is it fault tolerant? When things go wrong, can we bounce back, and can we bounce back quickly? It is easy to implement, right? Because time is very important. So we always want the option that is easiest to implement, and many more. Right? So this is what I mean by technical trade-offs. This is how developers think. And as a non-engineering professional, you also want to be able to think in this way as well. Let's move on to skill number 3. This skill is probably the most obvious, right? So the third technical skill is your ability to communicate technically, both speaking ability and comprehension. In other words, are you able to speak about a product using today's most common technical terms and lingo, at least the most common terms out there? Are you able to read and comprehend technical content? So when I say technical content, it can be anything from a software diagram, reading an article, to technical documentation, to API documentation, and to anything that's on the web, right? That's technical content. It's a very broad term. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about this. So being able to communicate technically is actually essential to reducing assumptions that may lead to miscommunication. And this happens very often with developers and with product managers or designers or customer success who don't have the same technical language, right? A lot of things are being said that's kind of being missed. I'm going to use the common terminology server as an example of miscommunication. What most people don't realize about the term server is that it's actually a bit of a dual meaning term. So its meaning changes based on the context. If you're unaware that the term server can refer to many different things, this may lead to miscommunications. So let's learn about the term server. The term server can actually refer to either hardware or software, depending on the context. When we are surfing the web, we're actually using our browser to connect to the internet, right? So whenever you enter a URL into your browser, the browser finds the server that contains the data for the web page that you want to go to. So this is the physical machine. This is the hardware that is hosting your application. When the physical server is found, so this is inside the physical server, the request is going to hit a software server inside the physical server. This HTTP server is a very unique piece of software with special functionality for understanding URLs, storing information about requests coming in, accessing files, and returning responses to the browser. So the term server can refer to either the hardware or the software, depending on what is the discussion context. This sort of fundamental understanding about how the internet works and the dual meaning term server really helps give you a fuller context to discussions and prevents miscommunications. So server is only one example of how having a fuller understanding of technology and software and how it works will help you in communicating. Okay. All right, the final technical skill number 4, is that you want to improve on your knowledge of the software development lifecycle, or the SDLC for short. Right? This is really important. What is the SDLC? Creating software is a very messy and very complicated process. So the tech industry has widely adopted the SDLC in order to give some structure to this very messy process. All tech companies and teams use variations of the SDLC in order to build, to design, and to ship software products. Right? So this is what you want to learn. You want to have familiarity with the end-to-end process of planning, developing, and releasing software. And you want to know the common tools and concepts that are used throughout this process. Here's a quick look at the 6 phases of the software development lifecycle. We go from planning software, right? So all of my product managers, you guys play a really big role in the planning of software, right? To the technical design. This is where developers, they take the requirements, they take the features that the product managers want them to build, they start thinking about the technical trade-offs, and they come up with a technical design. Then they build it. Once everyone agrees on the technical design, everyone agrees on the requirements, we start building. Once we build it, we have to test. This is extremely important. We can't miss this step. We test it, then we figure out how to ship the software, which is another really big part in software development. It's hundreds of books written on how do we actually ship software, right? And then documenting, which really should be done throughout all 6 phases. But at the end of the software development life cycle, it's very important that we have our documentation up and good. Each of these phases involve many tools and processes and is essential to building software. And it's important for you as someone who is technical to learn about these 6 phases. Being familiar with the tools and the concepts used throughout the SDLC will give you a more intimate understanding of what goes into building software. And not only that, but also what could go wrong throughout the process and what to do when it happens, and how long each phase takes, which gives you an idea of how long it takes to build software, right? So the SDLC is really important. Product managers that I've helped train, they love the chapter on SDLC. They always say when they learned about what actually goes into software, they're better able to understand time, you know, where a lot of the time is coming from that devs are spending on building software, a lot of things that they didn't realize. So it's not just the requirement, it's not just the feature, it's a lot of technical back-end stuff as well. Okay. So here's a quick recap of the 4 technical skills that you want to focus on developing: broad awareness of available technologies, understanding technical trade-offs, your ability to communicate technically, and understanding the process of building software, or the SDLC. As you grow and as you move in your career, you want to take an active approach to improving in these areas instead of focusing on learning how to code. And I'm going to share some tips with you on how to do that coming up. So here it is. Here are the 3 practical tips for improving your technical skills and knowledge. The first one is to focus on breadth before depth across core software topics. And I'm going to explain what I mean by this, and I'm going to provide you some software topics to learn. The second is to get yourself a tech mentor. I love this tip. I was a tech mentor. That's how I got started. I'm going to talk more about this. And then lastly is to work on tutorials from cloud computing companies instead of taking a coding class. And I'll tell you why this is much more effective. So tip number 1, focus on breadth before depth. As you embark on your journey, you want to become more technical. So you want to focus on breadth before depth. Focusing on breadth before depth means learning the fundamentals across core topics in software before diving deep into any of them. So here are some examples. Instead of learning the specific steps for setting up a database, focus first on learning what is a database, what are the different types of databases, and what are the pros and the cons of each of them. Here's another example. Focus instead of learning how to code in any specific programming language, focus first on learning what are programming languages. What are the different types of programming languages that are used on the front end and languages used on the back end, and what these different languages are capable of. Right? You don't have to go too deep into the differences in programming languages. It gets really convoluted and not very, it's not going to be very helpful for your role as a non-engineering person. But you want to be able to know the basics, right? The fundamentals. Here are some topics that you want to focus on instead of learning how to code. These are the core topics in software. The first one is the client side and the server side, which are technical terminologies for the front end and the back end. You want to learn about APIs. This is really important because back-end developers, they just spend all their time on APIs. So understand what are APIs and learn about the different components of an API. This is very important, the components of an API. Learn broadly about programming languages, as I mentioned. Also learn about how the computer actually turns programming languages into a functioning application. So here's my hint. Read up on compilation. What is that? Learn about cloud computing and what it means to scale. So I want you to touch on virtualization and technologies, okay? Virtualization technologies. Learn about architecture and software diagrams. This is so important. Learn about microservices and monoliths. These are the most popular architectural styles. Usually when you are in a meeting with engineers and they're talking about different ways of building, they're talking about architecture. They're never going to talk about how do I write a for loop in JavaScript, right? But they're going to talk about architecture. How do we architect this? How long is it going to take? Of course, you want to talk about data. You want to learn about data. Learn about the most prevalent data structures: JSON, strings, booleans, arrays, objects. What are those? Learn about SQL and NoSQL databases, and what is a database schema? What is involved in database schema, right? Learning about that will also help you learn how to write SQL. Database schemas will help you learn about SQL. The SDLC is extremely important, as we talked about previously. Also learn about deployments, aka shipping software. What is continuous integration? Right? Learn about those. These topics broadly will cover most of what you need to know as a non-engineering professional in software and technology. Right? All right, tip number 2 is to get yourself a tech mentor. Tech mentorship is different from what most people think about mentorship, because tech mentorship is cross-functional mentorship, and it is extremely effective if you're in a role that works with cross-functional teams. So I'm really talking about the product managers here. A tech mentor is a person with technical skills and knowledge, and usually that's a developer that you have regular meetings with, all right, in order to learn about technical topics and concepts through discussion. Learn about a specific product or app that is being built. So for example, if you're a product manager, you work on an app with a dev team, you not only want to learn about technology broadly, but you want to be able to learn about your specific product and how it's built, right? And generally, the tech mentor should be a resource for you as you're learning to become more technical, right? If you work on a product that has an engineering team, I highly suggest finding one or more tech mentors on that engineering team, since they'll be able to teach you about your product specifically. Right? It's so great to have a tech mentor, because a lot of times I know that people who are not technical, who work with a dev team, feel afraid to ask questions during engineering meetings. So when you have a tech mentor, you're building a relationship with someone specifically, and you can ask all of the questions that you might be afraid to ask in a large group of people. Here are some tips for tech mentoring sessions. First, meet regularly when you first start out. I suggest once every 2 weeks to start out. Once you feel more confident in your skills, you can always decrease it to monthly or bi-monthly, whatever works for you. And also on an as-needed basis. So for example, you might want to meet after or before an engineering meeting. Or if you're a product or project manager, you can ask for meetings during the phase where you are writing business requirements. Right? I also highly suggest coming prepared to each meeting with a technical resource as a way to facilitate discussion. This is really important, because sometimes when you start a discussion, you don't know where to start. A great way is to bring a technical resource. So for example, finding software diagrams, asking a dev if they have software diagrams, or API documentation, or general tech docs, or maybe you were doing your own research and you found these articles online, or there's this new service that the team is using and you're reading up on it, like Datadog or something, right? You want to bring that resource as a way to start talking about different topics. Also, the last tip, this is also really important. Please ask open-ended questions. This is a great way to improve skill number 2 in understanding technical trade-offs. So asking questions like, what are some alternative options for building the same feature? Why were certain decisions made? If you ask a developer, if you could rebuild this feature or rebuild this product, what would you do differently? Those are open-ended questions. And then based on what they explain and what they say, that's how you kind of learn what are the technical trade-offs, the things that are going through a dev's mind and why they make certain decisions. I wrote a Twitter thread about this, about different architectural decisions, and asking a dev about this thing. So I highly suggest you check it out. I also post a lot of other content about product management. tech skills and knowledge and working with dev teams. So please follow me on Twitter if you have an account. Gabe is going to put up the link to this specific thread, and from there you can follow me on Twitter. All right, let's move on to the last tip for improving your technical literacy. Instead of taking a coding class, work on tutorials offered by cloud computing companies. Cloud computing companies offer lots of really great beginner level tutorials and some more advanced tutorials, but you want to probably start, small to get hands-on exposure to many of the areas that we covered in the first tip. These tutorials are meant to be supplementary resource on your technical literacy journey. Okay, so you'll still have to read up on and learn about the technologies in each tutorial before working on them. Otherwise, you're probably going to be very confused. But these tutorials are a really great way to visualize technical concepts while getting exposure to a wide range of tools and services. I do have a list of recommended tutorials from different cloud computing companies on the front end, the back end. There's one on the front end, the back end, the infrastructure and databases to start out with. So feel free to check them out at skiplevel.co/resources. There's also a lot of other technical resources on the website. There are PDF infographics on 8 must-know terms and 3 must-learn tools. On the resources webpage, you'll also get my episode on various podcasts where I talk about technology skills and knowledge and product management and technology. So make sure to check out the website. And again, Gabe is going to drop that link in the chat. All right, before I jump into the final thoughts and takeaways, please let me know, what is your biggest takeaway so far? What have you learned the most that has helped you? Gabe is going to drop the topics that we've covered so far in the chat as a reminder for everyone for what we've covered so far. So please let me know what has helped you the most. I also write regular content at least once a month about topics like how to work with dev teams and technical topics like Web3. So if you have a Medium account, please feel free to follow me at IamIreneYu.medium.com. Again, Gabe is going to drop that link in the chat for everyone. All right, here's the final thoughts and takeaways from today's session, if you have taken away anything. First and foremost, with a little bit of time and effort, technical literacy is a skill that everyone and anyone can improve in and develop, even if you're not a developer. Being more technical will only benefit you in your career, right? It's never going to be a con for you. So make an intentional effort to keep your eyes and your ears open to opportunities to improve your tech literacy. Second, remember that your goal is not to remember every technical details. I cannot stress this enough. That is not your goal, to remember every little detail. That is not possible. Developers don't even do that. It is to get to a place where you feel confident in your ability to learn about technology and software, to acquire technology and software, and to ask well-informed questions. If right now you feel like you're not able to know what follow-up questions to ask, you want to get to a place where you do feel confident in that. Technology moves so quickly all the time. There's really no way that you're ever going to remember every little thing or learn every tool. So your goal is to have enough context to be able to ask the right questions to then figure things out for yourself. Right? In other words, when we look at the 5 levels of technical depth, what you want to aim for is number 3 and 4. Now, so if you're at level 1 where you have no idea what anyone's talking about, or 2, you broadly kind of understand, I want you to work to get to number 3 and 4. At the very least, you should broadly understand what's being said, why it is important, and I would even say, what is the problem that this thing solves, and the implications for your product, right? Again, super important for product managers. You don't need to be at number 5. I don't want you to aim for number 5. This is really where the devs are, the programmers are. It's really, not needed. But if you get there one day, fantastic. All right. Thank you all so much for joining. That is the talk for today. If you want a recap of today's presentation, all of the links and the Skiplevel offer, just visit skiplevel.co/womantech. The link will expire on July 1st, so make sure to visit that soon. If you want to reach out to me directly, you can also find me on social media, or you can book a coaching call with me at this link. Gabe is going to drop this link again in the chat, so please make sure to check it out. All right, it is time for Q&A. I'm going to take a look here. Sorry, I haven't been looking at the chat, but let's see. Let me take a look at the poll first. Okay. And let me take a look at the Q&A. So Lauren said, so would it be beneficial to take a AWS certificate cloud practitioner, or would that be too in-depth? I don't know that that would be too in-depth. I think that would be okay, although likely they will go into a lot of details that developers will only need to know. So if you're a non-engineer, it might get a little bit too deep. If you are in a role where you work very closely with cloud technologies, then I would say do it, take it. That might not be too in-depth because your role is specific to cloud, so you do want to do that. Garji said, how do you find a tech mentor if you haven't broken into the field? That is a really good question. So if you know anyone who is a software engineer, I would reach out to them. Here's the thing about software engineers. They love talking about technology. They love talking about technology. Software engineers love talking about building and what they're working on. So even if you were to reach out to a few people on LinkedIn that maybe work at a company that you're interested in, seem really nice, you can totally reach out to them on LinkedIn and let them know where you are in your career, where you're hoping to get to, thank them for their time and say, I'm looking for a tech mentor. This is what it is. Would you be open to maybe just doing a couple sessions with me for me to learn more about technology? Jill, what are some of the best and most effective ways you found to stay up to speed on emerging technologies? Yeah, this is a really good question. I have done a lot of my own research into resources for non-engineering professionals and technologies. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to find any good resources. There are specific newsletters with specific technology. So for example, JavaScript Weekly, I know is a newsletter that sends out every week about new technologies in JavaScript. I do think that it's a little bit too in depth. I don't know if that's helpful. You can always sign up for it and check it out. I do do my best with keeping up with new technologies. For example, I wrote a section on like Web3. I probably will write one on NFT. And so you can always join mine, and that you can do at skiplevel.co. You join my newsletter there. Okay, let's take a look at the chat. Please let me know if you have more questions. You could just drop it into the Q&A and I can answer that for you. How are we doing on time? Okay, looks like we just have 3 minutes left. So Mercedes said, I work a lot with servers and APIs. Oh, this thing jumped. Now I lost my place. Yeah, I work a lot with servers and APIs, but do not have a deep understanding of them. I have some more learning to do. Yeah, awesome, Mercedes. That is so great. I definitely, with APIs, again, learn about the components, what's a GET request, POST request, the request body, the request body. Yes, just different parts of it. Servers, learn about different types of servers. Containers are very important as well. If you, so the coaching link that Gabe dropped, so Maria, if you just go to skiplevel.co, scroll all the way to the end, you'll find a section where you can book a coaching call with me. So skiplevel.co. Ravathi, oh, I'm so glad that you enjoyed this session. That's awesome. I hope you got a lot from it. Garji said, what about the program management field? I assume the same advice. Yeah. Product, project, and program managers, those three terms, depending on the company, kind of vary so much, but they're also similar because they work so closely with developers. If you're a project or a program manager, you might have to go even deeper than the product manager. But again, it really depends on the company. But overall, it's going to be the same advice. Janine, I'm so glad this was beneficial for you. That's awesome. Natasha, I am a current graduate student pursuing IT. What are good technical skills to be a great project manager? Love the community insights on this. Okay. Hopefully my talk was able to give you some thoughts on that. So the 4 technical skills learned throughout the core topics that I covered: cloud computing, APIs, etc. Can you please repeat how long the special offer will be? Yeah, it's going to expire on 7/1, July 1st, Eva. Lauren, yeah, that's so strange. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that cap actually matters. But yeah, so skiplevel.co/womentech, all lowercase. Gabe, can you make sure to just drop that and let everyone know everything's lowercase? Elaine, as an engineer, but in a non-development role, I love the other view of tech that was covered in this talk. It's not about the details, but working knowledge. There are lots of engineers that do focus on one little thing. It's great to have that today. Awesome, Elaine. So glad. So glad that was helpful. Jackie, capitalization. Yeah, so sorry. Mansi, so glad that was great for you. Thank you for dropping that link. Product management versus project management. I know that's a big thing. Representing PM, task for building technical literacy of our team. John, that is awesome. That's a really big thing. We also help teams and companies become more learn technology. So feel free to go to skiplevel.co and reach out to me if you're interested. There's also skiplevel.co/teams just for teams and companies. So we'd love to see you there. Maria, Director of Customer Success. This one is brilliant. Thank you so much. So glad that was helpful. Garji, yep, definitely explain technical concepts in simple terms. This, I would say, is something very important to find in a tech mentor. Someone who communicates very well and is able to get out of their developer mindset to understand that, not everyone is in that mindset all the time. Garji, and for ability to communicate, there's a key interview question. Yes, I had a technical interview for a SaaS company. Yeah, a lot of companies now for product management and different roles are asking more technical knowledge questions. So definitely that helps during interviews. This is from Jackie. With technical abilities, that's a different skill. Understanding what a program does. What's the purpose and goals? Can I understand what it should do? And what is the right life cycle? There's a lot more. Yep. There's a lot more business knowledge and more soft skills required for tech itself. Absolutely. Mansi, Google and Microsoft specifically ask if you have a development background. I just gave interview with both. Awesome. Tracy, yeah, check out what Tracy has. She has free learning resources in her posts. That is awesome. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. Again, please feel free to reach out to me on social media. LinkedIn is I am Irene Yu. Twitter, same thing, IAMIRENEYU. You can always reach me on the website at the Skiplevel website. You can find a coaching call with me. Definitely reach out. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining me. Bye, everyone.